Venerable Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, the Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with the Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivas and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances
You are the daughter of King Shivan, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivas, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Okay. The third and the fourth chapter, if let's say we want to put it in one equation, one sutra. It's nice and cool here today. My eraser. No. So the third and the fourth chapter, let's say we want to put together the two chapters in one equation. What do I need to learn from this course? Then you can read the third and the fourth chapter on your own and you can understand everything. Third chapter equates karma equal to sacrifice. This is the main equation, main sutra from chapter 3. Karma should be done as a sacrifice. And this sacrifice in the fourth chapter is equated with knowledge. That sacrifice should be performed in knowledge. We will look at one verse of the fourth chapter where Krishna explains, I'm hoping that you guys are reading these chapters on your own. And after Krishna describes all the sacrifices, text 33, 4.33. This is right before Krishna advises us to approach a spiritual master. This 434 is one of the most... So chapter 433, 434. So anybody can read 433.
O chastiser of the enemy, sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Gita, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge.
Sacrifice which is performed in knowledge is better than sacrifice of mere material possession. This is a very interesting verse. In 17th, at the end of 17th chapter, the last verse of the 17th chapter, very similar, but Krishna also talks about a similar idea. 17:28.
659. In the hard bomb.
Anybody can read? 17:28.
Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Mahabharata, is impermanent. It is called asat, and it is useless both in this life and the next.
Mohit, you found it? 17:28. So chapter 17, text 28.
Okay. You want to read it again? Go ahead.
659.
Yeah, I'll read it again. Anything done as a sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in Supreme, O son of Prata, is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and the next.
Read the purport.
Anything done without the transcendental objective, whether it be sacrifice, charity, or penance, is useless. Therefore, it is this verse, it is declared that such activities are abominable. Everything should be done for the Supreme in Krishna consciousness. Without such faith and without the proper guidance, there can never be any fruit. In all the Vedic scriptures, faith in the Supreme is advised. In the pursuit of all Vedic instructions, the ultimate goal is the ultimate understanding of Krishna. No one can obtain access without following
Success.
No one can obtain success without following this principle. Therefore, the best course is to work from the very beginning in Krishna consciousness under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master. That is the way to make everything successful.
Okay, so this is, this idea that this sacrifice which is performed. So what I started off by saying that karma should be equal to sacrifice. Karma, relationships, work, the pursuit of livelihood, duties in varnashram, it must be done on a platform of sacrifice. Not just what feels good or what is pleasurable and not pleasurable. One should do it as in a mood of sacrifice. And that sacrifice should be done in knowledge. Real knowledge, what we find is, the real knowledge, real jnana is that I am a part and parcel of Krishna. And that being a part of the whole, my duty is to serve the whole. This is real knowledge. This sacrifice should be done in knowledge. Sacrifice also leads to knowledge. When karma is done as a sacrifice, it automatically, we heard that sakam and then ultimately nishkam karma yoga, it leads to transcendental knowledge. Doing one's duties according to varnashram system, it ultimately, when those duties are done as a sacrifice for the Supreme, it leads to knowledge. So ultimately, things equal to one another are equal to each other. So karma, when this karma is done with full knowledge, it becomes karma yoga. Then it becomes yoga. It becomes real connection. Real connection. One of the principal sacrifice which is mentioned in this age is this pursuit of Sankirtan, which is a principle. It can take many different details and it could be different for different people, but that's a principle of glorification of the Lord, that meaning of Sankirtan. So this is basically the sutra of 3rd and the 4th chapter of Gita. In 4th chapter, there are many sacrifices, opening orphanages, hospitals, schools, institutions. Some study Vedas, some perform austerity, some control the senses, some control the mind, some follow celibacy, like that. And in the end, we are advised to approach a teacher how to perform the sacrifice. You go to CVS pharmacy, there are over-the-counter medications, that's for everybody. But you have a specific prescription to fill, then you have to have a doctor's prescription. How to perform the sacrifice, the details, the nuances, the subtleties, that can be learned by approaching a spiritual master. Krishna ends the 4th chapter by glorifying this transcendental knowledge. Now, knowledge which is lip service and knowledge which is fully assimilated in the heart requires application of that knowledge. So Krishna is speaking the glories of transcendental knowledge. Just by situated in the boat, the most sinner can become enlightened. You can burn up all reactions of fruitive work, all sinful activities when you are situated in that boat of transcendental knowledge. But the knowledge, first initially just intellectual knowing, we talked about wisdom and intelligence and data and information, but it has to become realized knowledge for it to be assimilated and become transcendental knowledge. So this is the end of 3rd and 4th chapter. Now, in the beginning of 5th chapter, Arjuna asks yes.
So on 3rd and 4th chapter, Prabhuji, I have a question. Last Monday when you were giving the talk
in that you said that, so again you repeated today that work should be done in a sacrificial mood. Then you said that there are so many, so it's like we have to complete the cycle that we can't just take, we have to give. And then you said that when we have so many problems in the age because the sacrifice is not performed properly, or like whoever is performing is not pure or whatever. But then you said that when we do proper sacrifices, the peace and prosperity will come. And then you also mentioned that when you do sacrifice, it is Krishna as well as the demigods, and that's when the rain and all the other things come. But Krishna also talks about that in Govardhan Leela, that he tells Nanda Maharaj that why you are performing all these sacrifices. It is the duty of demigods to just do that. It's their job. Nobody is performing sacrifices, but still it rains. So all those things, it's like
that Krishna was misleading. Krishna was testing this karma mimamsa philosophy, that the rain also falls in the ocean. There is a reason why rain falls in the ocean. So that's called karma mimamsa. Krishna was testing Nanda Baba. That philosophy, that why do you need to make any sacrifice to devatas? It is their duty to give even without the sacrifice. This is called karma mimamsa. This is not a correct philosophy. Krishna was just playing with Nanda Baba. Eventually, to bring him to a higher platform, he said that it is the cows who give us sustenance. It is Govardhan hill which gives grass to the cows and a place for them to graze. And ultimately, we should make a sacrifice to Govardhan and the cows. And at the end of the Leela, Krishna displays himself as non-different from Govardhan, himself as the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices, himself as the protector and the maintainer of every living entity. So Krishna spoke that philosophy. That is wrong. That is not true philosophy. That is just like Krishna, playing with the Brajvasis. And that philosophy is specifically mentioned karma mimamsa. That is not correct. That you don't have to offer sacrifice. It will just happen like that.
That was also to Indra, right? So that's why he wanted to stop that.
He wanted to stop Indra. So what did ultimately the lesson you should get from Govardhan Leela is not this karma mimamsa philosophy, which is just like a little entertainment Krishna was doing with Brajvasi, but the ultimate purpose that I am the bhoktara prabhu revacha, I am the enjoyer and the master of all the devatas. Alec, you got that?
Yeah,
you got that
can you
idea?
give the reference of where
Yes, of course.
How it was understood that it is karma mimamsa?
Yes, of course, I can give you the reference. Yeah. Govardhan Leela is a very intriguing, very nice, detailed philosophy. But that's not true. Okay, so this much we discussed. And now Arjuna starts the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita with final question. So what we have understood is that spirituality, genuine realization or pursuit of transcendental knowledge, pursuit of jnana, which ultimately leads to bhakti, does not begin with renunciation. It does not begin with artificial or pseudo renunciation. And Prabhupada says, a sincere sweeper on a street is better than a charlatan meditator. Krishna in many, many words explain that it is our duties we must perform. Must perform. What can repression accomplish? There are 3 modes of nature. Bewildered by the modes of nature, we are driven by the modes to act. If we don't act in a spirit of service and sacrifice, we will act nonetheless. And then we will make a mess of everything. So this idea of renunciation is not premature or pseudo renunciation or early renunciation is not approved by Bhagavad Gita. In fact, Bhagavad Gita does not approve of renunciation. It approves of positive attachment. It approves of positive karma in the service of the Lord. That is what Gita ultimate meaning and message is. Yes, Krishna says in the 3rd chapter. In the 4th chapter, he makes one verse which I want you to not gloss over. He says, He says in the third or the fourth chapter that one who is self-realized, for him there is no duty. For him, for one who's self-realized, where does he?
Still perform the duty.
Yeah, Janaka and Krishna is that third chapter, right? Okay. We will just look at this verse. But for one, where is this? Okay. Okay, 3.17. Chapter 3, text 17. Can anybody read the text and the purport?
But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and one who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty.
So what is the qualification? Number one, for one who takes pleasure in the self. Number two, whose human life is one of self-realization. Number three, who's satisfied in the self only, fully satiated. For him there is no duty. Read the purport.
A person who is fully Krishna conscious.
Now in your book is fully italicized.
Yes.
Why? Prabhupada sometimes would, when he would dictate, he would say fully, then he would say bracket open, italics, bracket close. He wanted to make sure that this is not misunderstood. Because this is karma yoga, Krishna is saying act, 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 but he's also saying this verse here. Prabhupada puts in the purport, a person who is
Fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts and Krishna consciousness no longer has any duty to perform. Due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within is instantly cleansed, an effect of many, many thousands of yajna performances. By such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. His duty thus becomes self-illuminated by the grace of the Lord, and therefore he no longer has any obligations to the Vedic injunctions. Such a Krishna conscious person is no longer interested in the material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine and similar infatuations.
there will be a few people in every generation who will be called. They will have a calling. They have done in their previous lifetimes a certain level of advancement that they are fully self-realized. Their life is one of self-realization. Another aspect of karma could be that one may want to get an experience of complete immersion in spiritual life for a certain period of time. Okay? For example, every Mormon kid who grows up, after either 12th or after college, they are required to do missionary work for 1 year. They go to a place which is not their native home place, hometown. They sometimes go to different countries and they may do full missionary work, you know. So in Krishna consciousness, you will also see sometimes people may take up life of a monk or an initiation for a certain period of time, just to get experience, immersion, or there may be other training, experience, immersion, education. Those are the goals. But that's only for a certain period of time. And during that time, they're not sitting idly. They're learning, they're working hard, they're doing menial service, they're really doing active service. So it's not that they're just artificially restraining the senses.
So is it under a guru or?
It is generally under the advice of a superior authority. It could be anybody. But it's generally for a time-bound period, and it's generally for a specific time and purpose. Or sometimes it's generally sometimes it's a test to see, is this going to work for me?
You gave example of some people who are fully Krishna conscious, right?
Krishna in this chapter, Mohit, after speaking this verse, he tells two examples of Janak, Sita's father, and himself. He says, we don't have any duty to perform, but we still do it to set a good example. Meaning, even when working, somebody has no attachment to the fruit or to the work itself and is actually on a spiritual platform. He still can work to set a good example for others. And Krishna gives his own example. And he gives the example of Janak. And he says, Yat yat acharati shrestha, tat tat evetero jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastatanu vartate. People who are elevated may still act to set a good example for others. So he gives two examples.
And you said Janak.
Janak, Sita's father. Here Krishna is speaking. Janak appeared in Treta Yuga. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna that Arjuna, look at King Janak. You know, he was a self-realized soul, but he was still a king, a householder, a worldly man in the worldly sense of the word, and he was doing all his duties just to set a good example for a populace. So work should not be given up until one heart is completely purified.
Are there any examples in present age?
Like of what?
I'm asking
Fully
fully Krishna consciousness.
Do you know anybody that we know here?
No, not over here, but I think our Acharya will definitely work.
No, Alec, what's your question? Who do
I'm saying that do you know anyone who in present age is fully Krishna conscious? And how do you know that he is fully Krishna conscious?
in Grihastha life, in
Present time.
In this present age, right, we can look up to someone and okay, this is the person that Krishna was comparing himself, and then Janak Maharaj said.
my examples would be the people I know, and I'm sure there are many more. So there are several I met. There is one guy, his name is Vaisheshika. He's a house builder. And then, I know my guru, Radhanath Swami, Giriraj Swami. So these three people I know personally, and then there are several more though. There are several more who are actually on that platform of full Krishna consciousness. But since you asked, I just put some names out there.
What?
Like people I know who is fully Krishna conscious, But there are several others. There are many others also who I know, but it's usually a rare platform. In human society, you will generally find very, very rare souls who would have attained that platform.
So, like in chapter 3 and 4 says, we should work as per our true nature. How do you figure out what is my true nature?
What mode you are in?
So Abhishek, how do you know what is my true nature? In Kali Yuga, it is a little difficult proposition, okay? But sooner or later, eventually, people have realization of their self. And people who are actually who practice some form of spiritual practice, a genuine spiritual practice, would very, very quickly begin to understand what is that really motivates them, what is their true nature.
Like, what kind of things can happen in this situation to somebody that, okay, that is my true nature, or what kind of nature, what would be the nature factor, like for different people, what kind of...
Like what are some
Symptoms, I guess, or...
what would be the nature of anyone, like individual can have different nature, but is that meaning of nature by profession, that is the interest or that art or something like that, what interest?
The real nature, so when we talk about Swabhava means how does one's consciousness relates with matter. How does one's consciousness relates to matter? Or how does one's consciousness, it relates to matter, it relates to Paramatma, the spirit within, and it relates with other living entities, other Atmas. So how does Atma, how does Jivatma, how does he relate to matter? How does he relate with Paramatma? How does he relate with other Jivatmas? And basically this is the sum total of this is one's nature. and under what, and this is determined, this relationship are determined by modes of material nature, by the modes. So there are certain qualities of ignorance, certain qualities of passion, certain qualities of goodness. And Krishna explains that in detail in Gita. One can very easily understand by looking at those qualities, is my predominant nature in goodness, passion? There is always a mixture, but what operates in my psyche for the most part? Which one is predominant? Is tamo, ignorance, predominant? Is passion predominant? Or goodness predominant?
But in one person there could be all.
There could be all. But you will still find a mixture. And for example, a Kshatriya is goodness and passion. Passion predominates and goodness is also there. And ignorance, we need to sleep, right? Otherwise, we won't be able to sleep if there is no ignorance. If there is no tamogun, you won't be able to sleep. People who are very passionate cannot sleep. Their mind will not stop working. It's passion, totally misdirected passion. Misdirected, haphazard, passionate behavior creates diseases. It creates restlessness. It creates anxiety. You know, so how does Atma relate? It relates through the modes of nature. One can assess what mode am I predominantly in.
So by that, realizing that one will, for like somebody said, you are Brahman, you are Kshatriya or Shudra, by that you can categorize yourself?
By this you can understand. By this you can understand, and also, Prabhu, one more thing. Let's say, what work do you do? Software. The example I'm trying to give, as a doctor, I can tell who is how sick and which doctor has what qualification very quickly. A good chess player, maybe in 4 or 5 moves can assess. You understand what I'm saying? So there are people who are in knowledge of these gunas, and they can also tell what guna somebody is operating in. So that's where a guru comes.
I have as we advance in spiritually, our mode of nature changes.
It purifies, yes.
Purifies, and then we are little bit like.
You come from ignorance to passion to goodness, and the purpose of spiritual knowledge is to transcend these modes and come to transcendental goodness. This mode is called Turiya, T-U-R-I-Y-A. It's a state of consciousness of transcendental goodness. When one can actually communicate with Paramatma, and the Paramatma gives direct guidance. Do like this, don't do like this. If you do something which is not according to Paramatma, Paramatma will tell you that you screwed up. But it does not happen in every person's case. Generally in ignorance and passion, the Paramatma is sort of like a witness who's watching the activities, and the person is driven by ignorance and passion to perform those activities. He does not have the receptivity to listen to Paramatma.
He's dormant.
Dormant. He's like a witness, he's just watching him. In generally when we comes to this and to this, then one can hear what Paramatma is stating. In these situations, one may be able to have a very vague idea. Not he's totally sleeping, vague idea. He has.
Sorry.
Yes.
Is sleep equated with ignorance in Bhagavad Gita or rest?
Generally speaking, sleepiness is generally speaking, we have no awareness of us.
So Turiya is transcendental goodness.
Yes.
And so you are saying that from inside the Paramatma will give us the
Guidance.
guidance.
Direction, yes.
Would you say that the guilt that we get from inside, that's Paramatma's call?
You know, that's sometimes Paramatma's way of talking. It's a vague sort of, just imagine the state of that consciousness that, I do something, then I feel guilty. Then I feel inspired for a couple of days and then I do the same thing again, then I feel guilty. So it's called Shamshan guilt, you know. You go to a Shamshan Ghat, oh my God. Oh, you know, people go to a funeral and say, hey, what is the purpose of life? I forget about all of it. Because if I'm in the mode, if I'm still in the mode of ignorance, that's why I was saying guilt, fear, shame, generally these qualities are pronounced in ignorance. An ignorant person does activities in ignorance, feel guilty in ignorance, feel depressed, discouraged about that, will be inspired for a little bit, and then he will do the same thing. Then he will feel those same emotions again, so it's all on a mental platform.
And this Turiya is mentioned in chapter 4.
It's mentioned all over in Bhagavad Gita. It will come, I'll point it out to you.
Sorry.
Mode of transcendental goodness. Okay, so yes, Darpan.
And in order to get rid of this, we only need to chant, right?
How does one overcome the modes of material nature? Krishna says that is the difference between academic armchair speculation and bhakti yoga. When one begins to surrender to Krishna, Krishna says, Devi Isha Gunamai, Mama Maya Durathyaya, Mam Eva hi Prapadyante, Mayam Etam Tarantite. By surrendering unto me, one can overcome these modes of material nature. Mayam Etam Tarantite, you can go swim, cross beyond it. You know, you can go beyond this coverings of modes of nature by surrendering to Krishna. Okay, so in the 5th chapter, Arjuna asks one more time. So far we have determined that work is meant for purification of heart, which comes through the process of sacrifice. Sacrifice done in knowledge is better than sacrifice done ignorantly. And that's why transcendental knowledge is glorified in the Vedas. Now, in the 5th chapter, Arjuna asks one final question. Should I work in devotion or should I renounce work? That's the $1 million question we started off with. That's a question almost everybody asks oneself. What should I do? So we'll read chapter 5. First verse.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now you will kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial.
So Gita is not a vague sort of a speculatory knowledge. Krishna will tell you what is the best thing. Text 2, Krishna introduces now a few terms. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. He introduces this karma sannyas, karma yoga. And so he mentions in this one text, sannyasa, karma yogascha. What is karma yoga is the same thing as sannyas. Nishresha karau ubhau, tayostu karma sannyasa. So Arjuna become a karma sannyasi. Karma yoga vishishyate and perform karma yoga. So he introduces this idea of karma sannyas. Take sannyas, but be a karma sannyasi. Be a karma yogi. He says a direct question Arjuna asked, and text 2. What does he say?
The personality of Godhead replied, renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
Okay, question answered. Text 3. He continues.
One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activity is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcome material bondage and is completely liberated. O mighty armed Arjuna.
Okay, we'll continue reading text 6. Text 4 and 5, if you see text 4 and 5, Krishna introduces this idea of Sankhya Yoga. What is this Sankhya? So he says, Sankhya Yoga Pratagbala, text 4, chapter 5, text 4. Sankhya Yoga Pratagbala Pravadantina Pandita Ekam Api Astita Samyak Obhayora Vindate Phalam. This idea of Sankhya Yoga, which Krishna mentions in text 4 and 5, Sankhya means number, counting. Sankhya, Sankhya Purvak, Namagana. Sankhya means counting. There is this whole big philosophical system which is sort of like a speculative system. Okay, I have 5 senses, eyes, ear, nose, tongue and skin, 5 senses. Then there are 5 sense objects: touch, vision, smell, taste, and sound. 5 plus 5, 10. Then they would say there are 5 working senses: hands, legs, voice, anus, and genitals. That makes it 15. Then there are 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether. That makes it 20. Then there is 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, false ego. That makes it 23. Then there is a sum total of all of this, which is called Mahatattva, the entire material substance. That makes it 24. So then they will go, well, okay, this is not this is not it, this is not spirit, this is not spirit. So this whole idea of sort of a philosophical system where one distinguishes and discriminates what is matter, what is spirit, what are all the elements, and an entire mental speculation about that is like that. So you can also do like that. You can go somewhere and say, no, I'm not going to enjoy my senses. I'm not going to relate with the objects of the senses. Nothing, neti, not this, not that. That's kind of Sankhya Yoga. But Krishna says, but Karma Yoga is the result of Karma Yoga is easily available, and it is much better than Sankhya Yoga. That's basically the purport of text 4 and 5. And we'll start from reading from 6.
On the tattva, all the 24 tattvas are that. Is that the symptom of a soul also then? Or a jiva? Like any jiva must have all these 24 tattvas?
Yes. Like, gross elements, subtle elements, senses, objects of the senses, working senses, and then Mahatattva, yes.
But then we also say, like, so now there is different types of jivas. There are 8.4 million of like all jivas, and different. For example, dogs and cats probably have all the 24 tattvas. But plants, where do they have?
Yeah, so all of this philosophical speculation about this is all included in Sankhya Yoga. And Krishna tells Arjuna, don't worry about it too much. Whatever you will get from this kind of speculative analysis, you can get that from Karma Yoga also. You will get that knowledge from Karma Yoga also. So because it's irrelevant to the subject matter, we'll move forward, Alec. Okay, text 6. Text 6. Continuing on the point of whether I should work with devotion or renounce work.
Yeah. Merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
Text 7, very beautiful words.
One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
How to make one dear to others? People want to have good relationship with other. This is Krishna's relationship advice. Nice relationship advice. Read the text again.
7.
Yeah.
One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
Okay. Text 8 and 9.
A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
And text 10 is again a very, very beautiful verse, a perfection of Karma Yoga. Krishna finally gives the example of a lotus in a pond, which is very, very common Vedic pictorial analogy given. Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tektva karotiya lipatena se papena padma patram evambhasa. So text 10.
One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results onto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water.
Continuing.
The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification.
So action performed for the purpose of purification. Text 12. One can ask this question, is this entangling or liberating? Is this purifying or contaminating? Text 12.
The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for fruits of his labor, becomes entangled.
Very good. And now we'll read text 17.
Yeah.
Chapter 5, text 17.
When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgiving through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation.
So here Krishna sort of summarizes the answer to first question of Arjuna. What is to be done? Should I renounce work or should I work with devotion? Now Krishna in 5:18 speaks another very beautiful, beautiful verse. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Vidya and Vinaya. Knowledge should always be accompanied by humility. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Enriched. Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Swapakicha Pandya Samadarshana. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow. Now, Brahmana and cow are examples of mode of goodness. An elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. Elephant is an example of mode of passion, and a dog eater are example of ignorance. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, but a truly learned person, he sees that in everything only the modes of nature are active. Whether when he's relating with the senses, evacuating, receiving, speaking, moving about, he sees that the modes are active. Whether he sees any living entity, he does not see bodily distinction. He sees the unity of Atma and Paramatma in everything. He sees that Atma and Paramatma in a plant, in a tree, in a cow, in a dog eater. He does not see, he basically sees that because of modes of nature, people have become entrapped. Jesus Christ, very famous statement, Lord, forgive them for they don't know what they do. Why he says that? Why somebody is whipping you to death? He says, forgive them for they don't know what they do, because they know that only the modes of nature act. So when people are angry, lusty, greedy, proud, envious, one should know that only the modes of nature are acting and the real person has nothing to do with it. That's a little understanding, Mohit.
So, what if a person, so I understand that you are saying the difference between the person versus his bad
Nature.
actions,
Yeah.
bad nature. But then what if the person keeps doing the bad nature or bad action again and again and again?
So self-defense is obviously a mode of goodness response to that. And see, here's what happens, Mohit. When one tries to correct a bad action, most of the times we are not able to discriminate between one's action and him. So we begin to instinctively react against the person. And in that consciousness, no good is done.
Okay.
But if analysis is done and if its actions are taken to help the person, benefit the person, without being affected by mode of ignorance oneself, then one can bring about a positive outcome.
But then is there a limit up to which we should tolerate someone's bad actions and keep helping them?
Mohit, in our stage of consciousness, it's probably a very good idea to reflect on our motivations about everything. About what is really happening and what am I retaliating, what exactly am I being excited about or worked up about, you know. It's a good idea to be reflective about things. And of course, self-defense, meaning if I cannot tolerate that environment or the person or the situation, I should remove myself. And if that, if the action is clearly, off the wall, then one should take action right away. But two mistakes don't make one right. And you will find that, Mohit, in my own life, I have found that I end up making another mistake. And then the problem compounds. If it's not a clearly off the wall action, you will do or say or behave in a way which will create now two problems. Now I have to deal with two problems.
So,
Have you ever experienced that?
yeah, definitely.
In general, Mohit, you will find that thoughtfulness, humility, and patience generally yields far greater positive results than reactionary action.
But is it also not if something bad is happening specifically to me by someone, and I say that, oh my God, this guy is in mode of ignorance, but I have to do my defense, or I have to help him or her or myself. But can I also think that, oh, this is just a reaction of my bad karma that I'm getting?
Of course, that philosophical insight will help you understand things. The objective of anything we're talking about, something bad is being done. There are two objectives: self-defense and helping this person to stop his actions. Ultimately, prison is also meant to help the prisoner, at least theoretically. It's meant to help the prisoner. Life penalty, according to Manu Samhita, is one who kills. If he is killed, then he doesn't have to go through the reaction for many lifetimes, because the reaction comes compounded with interest. So you kill the person in a way, it's actually helpful. That's the whole idea between life penalty in Manu Samhita. It's actually to help the person to avoid reaction. The reason why today's society is hesitant about terminal penalty, about death penalty, is because the justice system has become corrupted. You don't know if you're going to hang an innocent person. Hundreds of prisoners are exonerated by DNA evidence. So now it's a problem for the state. They have to pay millions of dollars to prisoners every year.
Prasad was supported for so long in India after the terrorist.
Yeah, I mean, that was like totally ridiculousness, another ridiculousness. Now that is another abuse of the system. In societies where law and order is not very proper and not swift, then the attorneys and the vested interest, like Kasab, you gave an example. You know, if a person is taking an AK-47 and shooting indiscriminately, according to Manu Samhita, Manu, who basically is the first man, the father, he wrote a Samhita. He says these are the rules and regulations. Prabhupada quotes: one who kills, one who plunders, one who rapes one's wife, one who steals, one who does what we call rape, he should be disposed of. That's Manu Samhita. The reason it's given is it's to help. Anyway, coming back to your original point, what exactly is justice? That's why you have all of these court systems for reflection, for contemplation, for understanding, And when we react, we don't often mete out justice. We create two problems, is all I'm saying. Okay? So that's the idea there.
But what if one doesn't react and that person is being taken undue advantage of?
Yeah.
In that case, like, where
We
is
shouldn't
the
be-
fine line between?
No, defense should be there, child. Self-defense should be there.
So we should not retaliate.
No, I'm not saying we should not retaliate. I'm just saying one should be thoughtful about one's actions.
Okay, what-
Actions should be in mode of goodness. The point here is completion. The action should be in mode of goodness and sattva. Actions in ignorance and passion creates more problems. There is a way of retaliation. There is a way to retaliate. So many people are in the prison because they just retaliated and they killed somebody. That happens quite a bit. Now you have to spend the rest of your life in prison.
Because they did it in mode of passion. Because
Yes, exactly. Okay.
okay,
So that's text 18. Now in text 19 onwards, Krishna again comes back to the same theme of equanimity and tolerance. To overcome the modes of nature, Krishna gives some ideas here.
Go ahead.
Text 19. Anybody?
Those whose mind,
Those whose mind are established in the sameness and equanimity, have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence.
Krishna again talks about controlling the senses and not be disturbed by the fluctuating sense attractions.
Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. An intelligent person does not take part in the source of misery, which are due to contact with material senses. Son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of material senses and check the forces of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in his home. One whose happiness is within, whose happiness is within, and whose aim is inward is actually the perfect mystic. What is a mystic?
A mystic is a person who has attained a higher level of consciousness. A mysticism, this word mysticism is also equated with yoga, mystic yoga or mysticism. Mysticism is kind of what we don't understand. And actually what things which happen at the level of consciousness, we sometimes say we don't understand. So like that.
A sadhu.
Kind of like that. A mystic is a person who's elevated in consciousness, who's elevated in yoga. He's called a mystic.
22 is said.
There is a person called a Sadguru, right? He calls himself a mystic. Mystic, like that.
What will you say?
Text 22 says, who does not take part in the source of misery, which is due to contact with material sense. Then it says, such pleasures have a beginning and an end.
Yes.
What here is talking about sources of misery, then the next is talking about such pleasures.
Correct. This is a very interesting verse. Yehi samsparshaya bhoga dukha yonaya evate adi antavanta kaunteya teshu ramate buddha. Material pleasure versus spiritual pleasure. What is the difference? Material versus spiritual. Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery. He's talking about material sense gratification, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end. Material pleasure, for example, eating a rasgulla, have a beginning and an end. Ultimately, it will leave you with a stomach ache and, oh my God, I got to sleep now. You know? It has a beginning and an end. Any material pleasure you take, no matter how much you fantasize about it, mind, this Chaitanya Charan Prabhu does this kind of theories. M-I-N-D. Mind, the function of mind is to magnify. It will dream about something. It will dream about something. Function of mind is to magnify. Forgot. Imagine. It's imaginary. Oh, it will imagine. You can go with your mind to, anywhere in this, anywhere, imagining this, that, I mean, it's just, but actually, when you actually experience it, it is nothing. It's really painful. You can imagine, oh my God, I'll be driving this car. I'll be buying this car and I'll be driving. I'm just giving an example. So there's magnification, imagination. As soon as you buy it, number one, you have to pay a mortgage. Number one, the insurance is going to be too much. Number three, if somebody puts a scratch on it, oh my God, you're going to be in suffering. And number four, you're always going to be worried if it's going to be theft. Where should I park? How much I'm going to clean it? Best advice I'll give you is never fix your car. Don't fix the dents. You don't have to pay too much money, and your attachment from the car also goes down. Okay. Magnify, imagine.
Negate and deny.
Yes.
Deny and what?
Negate.
Negate and deny. No, I don't know.
Neglects opportunities and denies. It neglects opportunities. Okay? Like, for example, the mind, there are so many opportunities out there. No. Grass is greener on the other side. So it neglects opportunities and it denies reality. Like, I have a certain reality, I can be very happy with that. But no, it is going to totally deny reality. Like, for example, weight is a big issue for people, right? Of course, one should, according to Krishna consciousness, this body is a gift of God. One should maintain it in perfect condition. Lot of Vedic knowledge deals with yoga, asanas, pranayama, Ayurveda, sattvic food, everything in sattva gun. But let's just say for some reason, whatever, now you have gained a little weight. Now your mind, now you see the action of the mind in that cycle, You're not going to be happy about your life. You're going to look yourself 10 times, 20 times in front of the mirror. It neglects opportunities. It denies reality. It imagines, what if I had the swimsuit, the perfect body, and it magnifies that, that idea. It does what for every little detail. What you don't have, mind kind of, so anyway, so material pleasures are like that. Who asked a question? Abhishek. Material pleasure. Spiritual rasa or spiritual pleasure, it is difficult to obtain. It is poison in the beginning, but it is nectar in the end. Poison in the beginning, it is always increasing. It has no satiation. It has no boundaries. Material pleasure, no matter what music I heard in my life, I thought, wow, this was the best song, best music, best movie, best clothing, everything best.
2 days it's
It goes down. Spiritual pleasures, spiritual experiences, spiritual realizations, they go up. Okay? So like that. Okay, where we were?
Next, 24. He is liberated in the supreme.
Mystic is over. Mystic.
Uh-huh.
25.
Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfections, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated.
And now Krishna in 529, yes.
This is not.
This is Dhyana Yoga. What Krishna does, as he begins another discussion, he gives a little prelude. This is just a little prelude of what is going to come. Chapter 6 is entitled Dhyana Yoga. Krishna will explain this Dhyana Yoga in detail. What is this Dhyana? He just gives a little analogy. Shutting out. Now this is, okay, many of the techniques of Yoga Shrestha are applicable to every system of yoga. Now, for example, bhakti yoga or chanting, right? This is a very authorized technique, sitting properly, on a raised seat, having an asana, controlling your breath. By the way, with chanting, breath is automatically controlled. You don't have to do it separately. Keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward of breath within the nostrils, alternate nostril breathing, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The mind doesn't go here and there, the eyes and the ears don't go here and there, the buddhi doesn't get distracted. The transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. This is a prelude to Dhyana Yoga, which Krishna will explain in the next chapter. And now, Krishna in 29 gives the biggest peace formula. How can one individually and collectively attain peace? We will look at the verse and the purport. And we'll finish there.
A person in full consciousness of me, know me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport: the conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world, but they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Man should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because he is the proprietary of all planets and the demigods. No one is greater than he. He is greater than the greatest demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahmana. In the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is described as Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be the lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are all his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A super soul, a pure soul, is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, takes one into spiritual life even while one is in the jurisdiction of matter, for it is in an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial towards anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which in every respect helps one control the senses and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage or Brahma Nirvana. The eightfold yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is a gradual process: niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life.
Okay, and I had promised about 13th chapter. What I would like to do is to just read 13.8 to 13.12. Not today, but at your own pace. That is the most important aspect of knowledge. Arjuna asks, what is this transcendental knowledge? What happens when one attains knowledge? Also, Krishna explains that knowledge in 254 to 272. Arjuna asks this question to Krishna in the second chapter. What is the symptoms of one who's in knowledge? How does he walk? How does he sit? How does he talk? How does he get around? Krishna explains that from 254 to 272, 13.8 to 13.12. And in the 12th chapter from 12.11 to 12.20, Krishna also explains the qualities of a person who's in knowledge. 12.11 to 12.20. So these three places Krishna explains that. In the 13th chapter, the rest of the chapter is very easy. Very simple things Krishna mentioned. Krishna mentioned that there is a body. Inside the body there is an Atman, which we already understood in the second chapter, and there is Paramatma. This Paramatma, what are his characteristics? Atman's characteristics were described in chapter 2. The characteristics of Paramatma, also known as the super soul, is described in chapter 13. The rest of chapter 13 describes the characteristics of Paramatma, their relation between the two, and how does Atma relate with Paramatma through consciousness. Through consciousness, Atma relates to Paramatma. That is the purpose of the 13th chapter. Most important is 13.8 to 12, knowledge. Krishna explains what is real knowledge, which we are striving for through karma, which is sacrificial. We want to come to the platform of knowledge. This is explained in 13.8 to 12. Question about the 5th chapter, last verse. One attaining peace. How does one attain peace? By understanding Krishna is the enjoyer, the proprietor. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. Bhoktaram, I am the bhokta of all yagyas and all tapasyas. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. And I am the Maha Ishwar of all the planets. Suhridam sarva bhutanam. I am living in the heart of every living entity as the dearmost friend. Suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam. Knowing this truth about me, shantim rachati. Gyatva mam shantim rachati. He attains peace. So, any thoughts, any questions or discussions or comments about 5th chapter? We'll begin 6th chapter next week, or anything else.
So, so Prabhupada says in the purport that for Srila Lord Krishna is beneficial, one must understand and should offer everything as a service to God. So, and then he mentioned many places, other places also, that devotional service everywhere, all over the place.
All over the place.
So, devotional service can be anything, or is there like something? Can you just like shed some light on devotional service, and how can one find out their service, and how is it guaranteed that that will? Because service, right? Service to the...
First of all, Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, he translates bhakti as devotional service. He does not say bhakti as devotion. What is the difference between devotion and devotional service? Anybody? Abhishek.
I mean, devotion is a devotion is and devotional service is the
I think devotion is like any kind of service, other than the Krishna consciousness.
No. Why does Prabhupada not translate bhakti as devotional service and not devotion? Why is that?
Service refers to work.
Service refers to activity. I am devoted to you, Mona. I do nothing for you. Husband says, oh, I love you. But there is no corresponding action. See, Abhishek, there is no devotion can mean anything. I am devoted to you. I'm a big devotee of this person. What does it mean? What do you do? You know, I'm your great friend, I'm your best friend, I'm your well-wisher, I'm this and that. Sincerely yours, truly yours. What does it mean? What exactly did you do? So that is why bhakti means devotional service, an action done to please Krishna. For Kamlesh, if Kamlesh were to say to Mona, Mona, I love you, it will mean an action. You take some flowers, do something. You take, so it's an action. Action is doing the dishes, making the bed once in a while, cleaning the house, getting the bulb fixed, getting the laundry taken care of. So that's all devotional service, So doing something for Krishna is bhakti, devotional action. So Alec, what were you saying?
So then, how can one find out that, okay, what this is my devotional service and this is guaranteed that it will, take me to a platform where there is a permanent happiness?
Perfect question. How do I know what is my devotional service? Okay, very good question. First thing, I gave an example of CVS pharmacy. You go to the pharmacy, you need a toothbrush, you need a mouthwash, you need a floss pick. Okay? These things you need. So Krishna and our acharyas have very clearly explained that there are certain things which you have to do in bhakti yoga. Those things are, chanting is one, hearing about Krishna, and like that. There are 9 items which are given, you have to do it, and they're given in great detail. We know from the acharyas and from the scriptures and from Krishna himself, it pleases him. Krishna himself says so many times he says, I do not live here, I do not live there. I live where my devotees are chanting my holy name. Yes? Krishna says, I'm not pleased by, in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the main text, main spiritual text, the last verse of Bhagavatam. What is that, Shrestha? What is that last verse, Alec? So now you, huh? No, not Nam Smarana. No. Okay, so that's your homework. You can just look at Bhagavatam, the 12th canto. So Sukadev Goswami is teaching Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit is going to die after this. So now he sees, sometimes when you are the last thing, this is the most important thing, right? Because this is a test. So 12, so Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, SB, 12th canto, chapter, I forgot, last words, whatever it is. Okay? So you find that out. Krishna says that, okay? So that's there, right? These are important items, important things. Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, English, yeah. So Dasyam means servitude. Archanam means to worship the Lord. Vandanam means to offer prayers to the Lord. Kirtanam means to chant the glories of the Lord and to spread the glories of the Lord. Now, within that, what is my specific service? More specific prescription. What is my specific service once the foundational activities of bhakti are taken care of? Yes? Then, Alec, I have to see what is my nature. And is this service really corresponds to my nature? You may do in the beginning all kinds of services for Krishna. Yes? And in the beginning there is so much enthusiasm, you want to do everything. But then, what is my service for Krishna? One thing is sure to me, that some reason or another, I have to study, for me, I have to study Gita and I have to keep sharing this knowledge with others. It is very, very clear to me. Okay, it is corresponding to my nature. Second thing, sustainability. Whatever your service, Alec, is, you will find that is sustainable. Other things will fall off the wayside. Other things will, because of your nature, your svabhava is sustainable. The service which is according to your nature, you will find sustainability in that. Other things may just sort of like fall off. So ask yourself, with my time, with my energy, what I'm going to put my head into, is this going to be sustainable?
And these are after completing 9 devotional services.
The fundamentals. After you have done the fundamentals, by the way, Krishna also helps us, Paramatma. When one does the fundamentals, Krishna helps. But one's own nature. Second thing is, it sustainable? Let's say I want to give $1 million to this, but is it sustainable? Let's say I want to spend 20 hours doing this service. Is it sustainable? So what is your service will become illuminated when you put it to the kasauti or this litmus test of, is it according to my nature? Is it sustainable? Third thing, empowerment. Things, Alec, service which you are meant to do, you will find empowerment of the Lord. Many things will happen which will be miraculous, and it will promote your specific service to Krishna. You will get empowerment. You will get Lord's direct divine intervention in miraculous ways for you to offer that service. So one can also see, am I getting empowered or I'm not getting empowered? This is how many devotees make decisions in devotional service. What is my exact specific service? In what service I'm getting empowerment, in what service I'm not getting empowerment. Fourth, Lord's internal reciprocation in the form of purification. You can say purification, or you can say, there is many things. You can say knowledge. For example, when the service which is really pleasing to the Lord, which we are doing, you will find that your cognition, your understanding of Krishna, your understanding of traps in bhakti, pride, relishing, or the fame, relishing the name. These are all temporary phases. A devotee realizes his own mistake by the blessings of Krishna, and he goes, I have forgotten Krishna, and now I am being bewildered by these temporary transitory things. These are affecting my bhakti. Let me not do it. He will make mistakes. Krishna will enlighten him. He will become illuminated. It's simply a phase. Do not worry about superfluous.
So you mean to say everybody goes through that?
Everybody goes through. Depends upon how much anarthas you have.
Isn't joy also temporary though?
You will see, Charuta, that the joy you will find ever fresh, ever new. Like today you will experience a certain joy. Tomorrow you will experience a more subtler joy.
Prabhu, like Prabhuji asked Alec Prabhu about pride, is humility also a nature of the soul like Satchitanand, or is it not, Prabhu?
Humility is a nature of the soul. It is a nature of the soul. It's a true awareness of how great God is and how insignificant I am. That is a true understanding of reality. See, ultimately Krishna consciousness is about knowledge. Yes? What is real knowledge? That how vast this universe is and how insignificant I am. And how everything is given to me is given by God. I am the ability in man, I am the strength of the strong, I am the intelligence of the intelligent. So what is there to be not humble about? Again, all of these things come through the execution of devotional service. You do not have to go looking for these qualities. Do your bhakti with all your enthusiasm. It is a sublime process. When a solid becomes gas without going through the liquid phase, that's called sublimation. It's a sublime process. All of these things will become gas, they will evaporate. Okay, Lord's internal reciprocation. Pleasure of devotees. What service I am doing which is giving the most pleasure to the devotees? What will bring the most pleasure to devotees?
So sorry,
And devotees' pleasure is directly like Lord's telling you that do this. For example, we did a yajna of organizing a Bhagavad Katha. At the end, when I noticed that everybody was happy with the outcome, I know that the Lord was happy. Lord was pleased because all the devotees were pleased. If it is not the case, we have done Janmashtami festival. Somebody has some idea, somebody has other idea. Two devotees end up fighting. The end result is, and you know, especially when you fight with somebody about a service, you know that you may fight, but the Lord is not pleased. And at the end, your heart will not be full of joy. There was an indescribable joy, an inexplicable joy yesterday in the heart of a lot of devotees. I was outside, I was feeling joyful, you know. There is a joy which everybody gets because I was involved in the yajna in some way. So you will feel that, Alec. It is not a mystical phenomenon, it's a very concrete reality. Kamlesh.
I was saying, so if you see, then it boils down to the modes of nature, from ignorance to ignorance, passion to goodness. So that will be what it is, right? Or no?
Yes, of course.
Right.
Service done in ignorance and passion
Right.
will, it's
Eventually-
like a rice which is not flavored very well. Sweet rice which is not flavored very well.
So there was, I think, one question asked before, I forgot to ask, but that you should do something like which focus should be like making, which gives you like the nature, right? So nature could be like temporary, because if you get Krishna consciousness, you are not caring about what is your nature, because you will be always happy, and the nature could be temporary. So then it does not become like very significant to find out your nature or not.
You are right, Abhishek, you are actually right. But in the beginning, your nature still predominates. The predominating phase in the beginning is still your nature. Later on, when you are beyond the modes of nature, you can do anything and you can feel happy. Yeah, Mohit, I'll finish this. Pleasure of devotees, and finally, Alec, one should find a spiritual master. One should find a spiritual master and ask him that question. And that spiritual master could be Shiksha or Diksha, and you can ask both of them what will be most pleasing to you. And this is a direct representation of Paramatma in the heart. So look at whatever service you take, you think about, these are some thoughts for contemplation. Is there nature? Is there steadfastness and sustainability? Mother Kamagiri is cooking for last 43 years. And she's 65, she's going to get social security and she wants to cook. And I asked her, Mata, you drag your knee. She's a heavy set lady. Big arthritis in the knee. I don't know, you guys are all very young. Kamlesh can probably attest. Kamlesh, how old are you? 55. After 40, 45, things started creaking a little bit. When you do physical labor, the back, things which you could do just like that. It's a little bit of an effort, right, Mona?
Yes.
A little bit of an effort. So Mother Kamagiri, so I asked Mother Kamagiri is 65, when is this going to stop? And he said, Prema, this service will stop with my breath. Because it is her swabhava. It is her swabhava. She's in meditation. There is no difference between samadhi and cooking. She does not have to go to Himalayas or Vrindavan to attain samadhi. She's in samadhi. Bhoga shopping is samadhi. For Krishna, who really likes to do it, it is actually samadhi, you will see. That is why Krishna is advocating karma yoga. It is samadhi, it's karma samadhi. You will be in samadhi doing that activity if it's your nature. It could be your work also, your education also. If you're getting knowledge out of it, and if it's your nature, you will be in samadhi doing it. So here, this idea is there. Somebody had a question?
Yeah, no, that, oops, sorry. Go ahead.
How do I go about finding a spiritual master? Are there any guidelines for it? Or?
Very good question. How does one go about? Kamlesh, what were you saying?
No, I was wanted to clarify on the Shiksha and the Diksha. So go ahead first.
Shiksha is an instructing guru, and Diksha, you go to a university, 10 teachers will teach you. You are there for 4 or 5 years. You have maybe 40 teachers. When you graduate, the dean or the head of the department put a stamp on the certificate. By the authority vested in me by Ohio State University, I hereby certify that Shrestha, last name Sinha Roy, has gotten a degree in chemical engineering. हो गया. वो degree लग गई dean की, you know. Why did the dean give that degree? Because the university vested the authority in this person. This Diksha Guru is actually commissioned by Krishna. By a transcendental system, this person is commissioned by Krishna. He's commissioned by Krishna to deliver the soul, the Atma. That's why this person is commissioned by Krishna to deliver the Atma.
So Diksha Guru is more on an upper level than Shiksha Guru?
Yes, and Diksha is one.
Right.
Shiksha can be multitudes.
Okay. You can learn from so many.
You can, of course you can learn, but this is not just a Shiksha Guru. When we talk about in Vedic culture a Shiksha Guru, he also has to be a real exemplar. Of course, I can learn from everybody. You know, even a person who does the most horrible things, I can learn from him how not to behave. But he's not my Shiksha Guru. Shiksha Guru is an exemplar of Bhakti Yoga who helps me, guides me like that. In my case, I gave you 3 examples just because you asked. One person is a Diksha Guru, other 2 are Shiksha Guru. Generally, Shiksha Guru is almost on the level of Diksha Guru. You following? Everybody following? Generally, that's the case. You know, somebody can be very fortunate and he may find. There are some devotees I know who are my god brothers and god sisters who are almost my age. They are really, really spiritually advanced. Really advanced. Okay, so Alec, some thoughts about service. You know, steadiness, consistency, stability, nature, joy, purification, knowledge, pleasure of devotees, and the blessings of the spiritual master. I asked Radhanath Swami Maharaj, $10 million temple. What is your word now, finally? This is my desire. He said, cut it down. He said, do it, but do it in phases. Cut it down to maybe half the project, and that project also just do it in phases. But do it. Ho gaya. Bas. Bol diya Paramatma ne. Khatam. Ho gaya. Finished. So that's the final word, you know. So cut it down, just and do it in phases. Do it simple. Do whatever you can. You know, make sure that everybody is happy and everybody is enlivened by this activity of building a temple. I can send you his email. And I can't, but I can show it to you. I'll cut, copy, paste. He says, make sure everybody is enlivened by this process and make sure that it's all good for everybody. You know, cut it down, it's too much, you know, 5 million, and then even cut it down and do it in phases.
So what is sometimes, not only spiritual master or like even scripture, what is something that we get instructions from and then we don't like it? It just doesn't...
It doesn't gel.
Oh, sorry.
First of all, Alec, you have to be careful about the process of a spiritual master. Okay? Because it's a byway street, you know. And the second thing is Prabhupada got this impossible instruction, go to the West and preach. Instructions which you may not like now, which may not gel with you now, which is like impossible now. If that person is your guru, that instruction will not leave your heart. You will not be able to sleep. It will not leave your life, and Krishna, through a transcendental mechanism, if you are sincere, will bring you back to that instruction. If you have sincerity, if you chant, if you practice bhakti, then Krishna will bring you to that instruction. This is the transcendental mechanism. You did not like it, you didn't want to do it. Prabhupada said, I did not want to come to the earth. Krishna forced me to go. When his Guru Maharaj first came in his dream and told him to take sannyas, he said, Prabhupada uses the word, I was horrified. I was horrified. He says, sannyas? He says, no, I'm not going to take it. He was a married man, family, business. Again, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur came. Come, take sannyas. He said, no, I'm never going to do this. Many years later.
What age he took the sannyas?
He was, so he left 69. He was about 60 years old.
Wow, that late.
Not late. He raised 5 children.
And then he came here and did all this things.
And from 60 to 69, those 9 years of his life, Mona, he lived an existence which was so humble that you could not distinguish him from another beggar in Vrindavan. He was begging for 9 years.
In Vrindavan?
In Vrindavan.
Oh, wow.
He was begging. One time he was standing outside a rich man's house for 5 rupees for his monthly rent, and his god brother, another devotee, went on a cycle. So he says, Swami Maharaj, this is after his sannyas. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm waiting for this rich man. The guard, in India you have this big walls, and a dog and a guard. And he said, this guard, he's making me wait outside. I'm waiting for the businessman. 2-3 hours later, the guard brother finished his errands and he's going back on his cycle. He said, Swami Maharaj, you're still standing. Come with me. Come sit on my bicycle. I'll give you 5 rupees. This is 1950s India. He came to United States in 65 when he was 69 years old. So 1960s India, 5 rupees, a lot of money. That was his monthly rent and utilities. So he said, Swamiji, come with me. I'll give you 5 rupees. And then Prabhupada kind of looked down. He said, well, let them make that every month. You follow the joke? The god brother offered 5 rupees. Prabhupada said, can you please do it every month? Let's make that every month. He was joking with him. So he was living a life of a beggar for 9 years in Vrindavan.
So when did he, because you said he was a grahastha, when did he come into Krishna consciousness?
When he was 22 years old,
Oh.
When he was 22 years old, he met his guru. His guru told him that you should go to the West and preach in the first meeting.
Oh wow, at the age of 22?
At the age of 22. At the age of 33, he took Diksha. Then he left his family, I think at the age of 54. And then he took sannyas at the age of 60.
So when they leave their family, they don't have any connection after that, and do they communicate with their family or they just?
He always kept in touch with his youngest son. His family, his wife was not very supportive, and she had 2 or 3 other grown-up sons, and so Prabhupada gave all the business to them. The eldest son died of schizophrenia. The second son developed an aversion to Prabhupada because the entire family business and responsibility fell on him. So he said, like that. Third and fourth were 2 sisters who got married. They were nice Bengali girls. They got married early in their life. And the fifth one was Vrindavan Chandra, the little boy who would accompany Prabhupada to his pilgrimage when he went to see Bhakti Siddhanta. Vrindavan Chandra went with him and he saw Bhakti Siddhanta. Bhakti Siddhanta gave him blessings. So Prabhupada, when he was leaving from Calcutta at the age of 69, in 1965, only Vrindavan Chandra came to see him off. After Prabhupada became very successful, he asked the devotees to give his wife and all his children a monthly pension, which continued till the natural duration of their life. He also gave Vrindavan Chandra, his youngest son, money to buy an apartment and left a little bit of money for them. Only his youngest, then his children also kind of passed away. By Krishna's influence, Prabhupada was never encumbered by the family after he left them. And they were also not interested in him. And he wrote a poem. He said, I left 5 children and Krishna sent me 5,000. He had 5,000 disciples. And after Prabhupada left, the second son, who became the torch bearer of the family business, sued ISKCON that all of the property belongs to him. Went to the court case went on for a few years, and him and the third daughter, they sued ISKCON that all the property belongs to them, until they finally had to go to the court, and Indian court system, and the person who actually gave him sannyas was alive, and he said, I gave him sannyas. According to Indian penal code, when a man takes sannyas, he is no longer with the family. Does not have a claim to family property, and his property family does not have a claim on. So they had to show his actual sannyas. Gurudev Prabhu, आप निकलो, अपन बाद में बात करते हैं. तो गुरुदेव प्रभु सब ठीक है ना? You're okay? Okay. बाद में बात करें. Fine. So this is a little bit of history of Prabhupada's family. His son Vrindavan Chandra De, he just left his body just recently, last year or so. He was the only one who came to see him off. And Vrindavan Chandra De, the descendants of the other family members are not very known at all, but Vrindavan Chandra De had a granddaughter who became a devotee, and she died by drowning in Ganga. And her daughter is a very, very wonderful devotee, and she lives in Mayapur. That is the only heir of Prabhupada's seminal descent left that we know of.
So that's great-granddaughter.
Great-granddaughter.
This property you're talking about was in Mayapur or in Calcutta?
Which property?
The property which they sued for.
They sued ISKCON that all of the properties belong to them.
But they didn't get it, right?
No.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Sorry for distracting about this.
Her question next.
Yeah,
Good
Char-
question, yeah.
How do I go about finding a spiritual?
How do you go about finding a spiritual master? Okay, Charuta. See, very, very simple analogy would be, if let's say somebody wants to learn chess, right? And he says, how do I go about finding Garry Kasparov? You heard of Garry Kasparov, a Russian player? It would be like, why don't you take intermediary steps? So finding a guru is as much as of an exercise as becoming a qualified disciple. And there are certain steps one take, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when one does that, what happens is, by a transcendental system, Krishna arranges for that person to come in contact with another person who will be able to fill in the gaps, who will be able to give that transcendental knowledge. Meaning there has to be a thirst, there has to be a spiritual hunger. Yes, Charuta? And these are, they are not talking about you, talking about general principles. So general principles of spiritual life are, what are the steps? What are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? What is my life? What exactly is that I want? And then you will find a lot of men and women of knowledge. If you meet them, if you serve them, if you associate with them, just associate with them, listen to them, serve them, hang out with them, you will get greater and greater volumes of spiritual realizations and knowledge. And by a transcendental system, one time it will come, just the same analogy of chess. When your rating is more than 2800, yes, okay. Here's Anand here. You can play with him, get guidance from him. He can be your coach, like that.
So we can have multiple gurus in spirituality also, or because say right now I'm at a lower level, so I don't know much. So I find a guru which is more related to me. But like, later on if I progress,
Exactly. You will have multiple, in all of these levels, you will have shiksha. For example, Prem Sindhu Guru. He's like your shiksha guru. So like that, you will find at each level, you will find many teachers.
right.
And then ultimately, Kamlesh, when you are really ready and strong in your sadhana, because what happens is, when one actually finds a Diksha Guru, it is a very serious level of commitment. Because even if you come in contact with a person like that, if your commitment is not there, it will be a exercise. It will just be an exercise. What exactly do I really hope to get from a person? What is he going to teach me? Generally, that relationship is sacred, and it is based on chanting and real Krishna. I want Krishna, so I want that. Now, sometimes, Kamlesh, I'll tell you what happens also, that sometimes, one also gets carried over by the current of bhakti in the association of other devotees, and that is also fine. So we just have to be carried over. Okay, anything else for today? All right. So we'll start with the 6th chapter.